Celebrating 4 years of talk like you've never heard it before. This is GABNET, the Great American Broadcast Network.
Hey everybody, this is Alex Bennett, host of the Ramble, heard here and seen here on GABNET, Tuesday through Fridays, live at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, and I got some big news for you. Our program has moved its live video from Facebook Live to YouTube Live. After extensive tests in our GABNET laboratories of at least 10 minutes, our mind was made up and we've come to the conclusion that YouTube is superior not only in video quality, but audio as well. And then there's the ease of watching it. Here's what you do. Simply point your browser to youtube.com/Bolo Bennett /live. That's youtube.com/Bolo Bennett, BOLOBENNETT /live. And you're there. The player is waiting, and you do nothing, and when the show begins, so does the player. Couldn't be simpler. In fact, tag that page as a permanent tab on your browser, and you're ready to go. And if all of this is too vexing for you, well, just go to gabnet.net near showtime, and the player in the middle of the page will start to play when we're on. We're thrilled with the new quality our move has provided, and while you're there, would you do me a favor and please subscribe to our channel? No, I beg you to. Hey, listen to me, I'm groveling, okay? I know, it's pathetic. I'm sorry, I'm debasing myself, and I really shouldn't be. Please.
We're GABNET, and we've got you covered live 5 nights a week. First Tuesday through Friday at 9:30 Eastern, it's The Exchange.
Let's capture you. I mean, who are all these people who are watching these cooking shows? They're stoners, right? So I'm wondering, is this a program that Netflix has absorbed? I don't know, what is the purpose of Netflix making a 14-minute show? Now, aside from those 2 interesting facts about this show, the show is fucking terrible. Do not watch this show. It fucking sucks.
Tuesday through Friday at 10 Eastern. Join Alex Bennett on The Ramble.
Say goodbye to the unions.
Renee, what was the decision? And then we'll go to Patrick.
It doesn't matter. Just say goodbye to the unions.
No. But I'm not asking you that. I'm asking you what was in the decision yesterday.
I'm going to look it up.
Okay, let me look it up.
Yeah, he'll go look it up at glennbeck.com.
Tuesday through Friday at midnight, The Intersection.
Most high school boys, what have we got on our mind? Sex and girls and sex and sex and sex.
And booze and drugs.
Yeah, I mean, the Asian guys I knew in high school, I don't, I'm sure they thought that way, but perhaps they were more disciplined about it. Although there was this Japanese girl in high school that your old friend, the Black Avenger, had the hots for. Oh, my God. Be still my sake wanting to drink self.
If you like sports, we've got that too, with The Arena, Wednesday nights at 8:30 p.m. Eastern.
Well, and even if you did that, it doesn't give you the right to grab your Uber driver's private. I mean, and like, what part of that to him sounded like a good idea?
Oh, she played a special song.
Finally, you can get hot and bothered on Connections at 10 p.m. Eastern Monday, and by delay Tuesday through Friday at 1 a.m. Eastern.
Now, of course, you got your Bundy barbecue. We did that here. It's going to be cool. So we have a few of them out of the state of Florida, right? We got Dating Rawlings.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so we can look at that. That'll be fun. So, okay. So, well, I don't want to shoot the whole lot right there. No.
I'm sure Dahmer will come up somewhere.
Dahmer! Oh, yeah. He was fun. A looker, too.
Catch up on all the shows with our Weekend Flashback. All shows have the Citizen Panel, an exclusive concept of GABNET. It's new. It's daring. It's talk like you've never heard it before. Celebrating 4 years of talk like you've never heard it before. This is GABNET, the Great American Broadcast Network.
Well, hello everybody. How are you? Welcome to the Ramble. This goes on until midnight Eastern Daylight Time, and in about a half hour to 30 minutes from right now, we're going to go to our citizens panel. But every now and then, we like to talk to some, I guess I could call it old history, but a new find in a friend. Watch here. Ladies and gentlemen, there she is. That is the ex from Oregon. You're not having fires up there, are you? This is Ronnie Bennett.
Oh, terrible fires. It's almost as bad as California and Southern Oregon.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought it was just down in California around Shasta, which is, of course, near the border.
Well, that's very north, but it's also moved further north. And you must have heard they said this morning that, I've forgotten the name of it, but one of the fires is the biggest ever in California.
Yeah, yeah.
It's awful. Of course, there's no global warming,
No, there's no global warming. It's fine. It's cool. I just think that when the ice age comes, they're going to say, there's no global warming. Look how cool it is.
They did say that a lot. Look, there's ice at the
Well, they
North
don't
Pole.
understand global warming. It has nothing to do with heat or cold. It has to do with the planet is warming, and therefore it causes effects to happen that will, in many cases, cause freezing.
I can't. I'm so worried about the environmental future that maybe we shouldn't talk about that today. It's just terrible.
Well, what are you worried about the environment? Let me be honest about it.
At least I'll die before.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Let the next generation figure this out. Let us just have a nice old age, all right?
Well,
yeah.
Still have to speak up.
You still have to speak up. I see. Yeah, I guess. But I mean, the problem is you tune on to all the news networks and you're thinking the world's coming to an end because they live on the world coming to an end. They live on crisis.
Do you remember when days would go by and you didn't hear anything about the president? Maybe he turned up in the Rose Garden now and then.
Yeah, that was during Obama. That was during Obama.
Nothing.
Yeah, that was during Obama. You go for a week and not hear about the president. This one monopolizes the national conversation. But it's not only that. It's this what I call I remember when I was a kid. Yeah, I do remember when I was a kid, folks. Next door, one night on a rainy night, some guy next door took this woman who he was living with and threw her down 50 concrete steps. Right? She gets to the bottom. She's battered, okay, obviously. And she's rushed to the hospital to take care of her. And her wounds are attended to. And a few days later, they let her out of the hospital. She's back living with the guy. And I often wondered why that happens. And it's because, you have these dysfunctional relationships. You have this codependency on misery. And I feel that there's no difference between that and the press and Trump.
I'm so glad you got there. I was wondering where you were going.
Yeah, but there's no difference between that and Trump. That there's a codependency that the press has on having to put up with this guy and give him the publicity he wants. And yet, most of the stuff he does isn't even newsworthy. When he goes off to campaign for somebody, you don't have to broadcast the speech.
It's the same speech.
It's not important. And when he does
aren't I wonderful, beating my chest?
And when he does a horrible tweet or something like that, no reason to cover it. So my theory is stop covering the president in such minutia, and it'll drive him nuts.
Yeah, well, they won't because they're afraid everybody else will, and then everybody will go to those channels because I think we are all as addicted as the media. We've been trained that way for 2.5 years now.
Yeah, I know my wife who says, I hate this, I don't want to watch any of the news, and then she comes home and she puts MSNBC on and starts going, that son of a bitch, and I'm going, come on, if we just stopped reporting him in such minutia, if we only reported him when he did something important or was something newsworthy that affects you and I, it would drive him fucking nuts. But no, they keep reporting on him. He controls the press. He talks about the fake news. He controls the fake news. So I'm through with my little religious.
You're through with that. Well, let me tell you something I'm doing. I don't know if you know, but for many years, from 2007 to 2015, I had a secondary blog called The Elder Storytelling Place.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't write for it. Readers wrote for it, and I just published the pieces. I stopped it in 2015 because I'm getting old and I can't do as much work every day. But recently, one of the best and by the way, over those 8 years, we had way more than 2,000 stories, fabulous stories people told, and I can't remember, but several hundred writers. So a couple of weeks ago, one of the best who told the best family stories, her name was Nancy Lights. One of her kids emailed and said that she had died. She was 89. And, I don't publish Time Goes By on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so I was thinking about Nancy and what wonderful stories she and all the other people told. I thought, 1 or 2 days a week, those 2 empty ones,
yeah,
I could post stories, but put them on the blog I've got now and keep it down to 1 or 2.
Mm-hmm.
So as of today, when I publish, today meaning when viewers are seeing this video,
which is,
we're recording it on Tuesday, but I will post it for Wednesday.
Yeah.
I put all the back end necessary together, and it will start the storytelling again. I'm announcing the beginning of it today, and we'll see how it goes. It will be nice. And so, in anticipation, I want to tell you a story about when you and I moved to New York City.
Oh, okay. Memories, like the corners of my mind.
You see, what we always did, if you will remember all the moves that we made, you went ahead and found a place to live, and I followed, driving the car and the cats to the new place.
Screaming all the way. Not you, the cats.
Whoa, that's another story. And
no, what I used to love about traveling with those cats is Yuntiv, who was a female, would scream the entire 2,000 miles or however.
One time she was pregnant. Oh, my babies! You're killing my babies the whole way.
Yeah, we're all gonna die, right? And
yes.
Meanwhile, Shabbos, who was the older male, the first thing he would do when he got into the car was about within a mile of the trip take a dump in the back seat.
Oh, I thought he threw up. I can't remember.
No, he was taking a dump.
Oh, okay.
Throwing up was something he did around the house all the time. He was like this fountain of joy, But anyway, go ahead. So
All right. So always I would tell you what I thought kind of apartment or where you should get it. And I had told you I don't care what you get us in New York City. It has to be in the Village. Instead, you got a place in Riverdale so that when I came across the George Washington Bridge, instead of turning right into Manhattan, turned left into South Bronx. So we're there, and the moving people are coming, and we're getting settled. And after a week, I was taking the bus into Manhattan to meet our friend Mary for lunch. If you remember Mary, who was a model, and we knew her from Houston.
Right.
And she worked in Manhattan in a place across from Saks Fifth Avenue. So I took the bus in. I dreamed of being in Manhattan my whole life. Now I'm finally going to set foot on it for the first time ever. And I get out of the bus at 50th and Broadway, and I've never been there, so I'm trying to orient myself. And it's noon, and there's just, what New York and Broadway and Midtown is like. It just people swirling everywhere at noon. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to organize myself north, south, east, west, and I hear somebody yelling, "Sex pervert, sex pervert, sex pervert." And I look around, and some guy is pointing right at me. He's wearing a beanie with a propeller, pointing at me and yelling, "Sex pervert, sex pervert." And I'm terrified. I just want out of there. People aren't stopping. They keep going, but they're turning to look, and I don't much like that. So I finally figured out what direction I'm supposed to go in to meet Mary. And he screams it the whole way. I finally get across the street, and I lost him. Now, little side issue, I later found out after we'd lived there a while, someone told me he was well known on that corner. He'd been doing that for years. His name was Larry, and he was there for years and years. Whenever I passed by during the day, I would see him there. So I walk across to where Mary and I are going to meet on Fifth Avenue, and I'm a little early, and it's at Saks Fifth Avenue, very near that with Rockefeller Center across the street and the big Atlas, you know, the guy holding up the world
right
at Rockefeller Center. And I'm watching all the people in New York walking by at lunchtime. The men all wore suits in those days. This is 67, 68 we moved there, something like
69.
that. And so I'm waiting for Mary to meet me there. And people are going by, and two guys are going by talking. One of them grabs my arm and says, "Are you married?" And I kind of stutter. Nobody ever talked. A stranger never spoke to me like that before. And I kind of stutter. Well, yes, I am. And he turns to his friend as they walk off and says, "Shit, I'll never be able to find anybody to marry me." And that's when I knew I would be fine in New York. That anything could happen at any time. And if just you know that, you'll be terrific. You'll get along just fine in New York. And
Yeah. And you got along well in New York. In fact, you have a love.
I love New York. I miss it every day.
You, as well as myself, had a love affair with New York. Okay, and I remember that love affair because I find it totally absent in me now. I do not have a love affair with New York. There's nothing. There was something about it. I don't know how I could put it. To begin with, it was dangerous. You know, there was a slight...
What do you mean it was dangerous? When was it dangerous?
I always felt in New York it was like you were walking on the edge of a razor. You know, that...
You're living there now. Why are you talking in the past?
Because the past, that's New York in the past. And I like that New York. I like the dirtier New York. I like the rougher New York. I like the hint of danger New York. Okay? The New York we've got now is just so sanitized. You can't believe it. You know, I mean, they're gentrifying Harlem. And you know what Harlem's losing? Harlem! You know, and when I first moved here, I went, you know, there's something about this neighborhood I really like because it's still kind of the New York I used to know. You know, has that kind of edge. It's the land time forgot, you know. And now, forget it. I go up the street. I go one block up the street. It's like I'm anywhere in New York City. I couldn't say I was in Harlem, you know, except
one of my blog readers who lives in Quebec sent me an email this morning with a link to a story about a coffee place restaurant on Lafayette Street that's closing after 35 years. And although I was never a regular there, it was only 5 or 6 blocks from where I lived in New York. And so I would stop in or meet friends there for coffee now and again. And last time I was there, my favorite go-to restaurant when you just want something good to eat, but you don't want to go a long way or get too fancy, that had closed after it had been there 35 or 40 years, just a block from where I lived. A lot of that's happened.
There's a place off of Houston. I forget the name of it, but it was like Marjorie's favorite place to go get brunch, okay, because they had a great Bloody Mary. And we went there. I think our first date was actually there, and we went back.
You had a brunch date for a first date?
Well, we went to a movie and we went to have brunch. Okay, it was just a first meeting kind of thing. You know, a first date with people. You never make it dinner at night because if you don't like what's going on, well, I have to be somewhere at 5 o'clock. Right? You know, you have an excuse to get out of it. So the first one is always something like a brunch or a whatever. Anyway.
I didn't know that rule.
This place, we went by it the other day to say, hey, let's go get ourselves something. It's closed after 35 years.
Yeah.
You know, it's just that there are a lot of people who have been here a long time. Very successful restaurant. It's not like nobody was dropping by to get food anymore or anything like that. On a Sunday, you'd have to wait in line to get in there. But the rents, all of a sudden the rents come due, and here in New York, they're like just going sky high, and people can't afford to keep the doors open any longer. So all the old established little places you like to go to, you know that restaurant you and I used to go to near where you were, that Italian place?
Oh, yeah, my favorite calamari. I was going to mention that right now.
Yeah, closed. Closed.
Marinella, it was called.
Yeah, Marinella's closed.
Yes, I know.
Gone.
When I was in New York last time, I was walking around downtown. I thought, I'll do lunch there and have my glass of wine and my calamari, which is my go-to lunch when I work from home.
Yeah.
And it was turned into some kind of pizza place or something.
Because they didn't do the calamari that's breaded and all of that. It was the fried calamari. Not fried calamari.
It was a broiled calamari with a great flavoring on it.
Yeah,
it was the best.
And she and I used to go there on occasion, and we went back a couple of weeks ago and said, let's go to there. We haven't been there in a while, and we went by and it's closed. And you go, come on, this place was...
I think, by the way, though, that some of this lamenting what goes away after, 35 years is a good run, lamenting so many places that, you once liked and it's been over many years. I think that's an old person's complaint. Young people don't even know those places ever existed. They have their own that they're going to lament in 25 or 30 years.
Yeah, but there was the sad part was there was no reason for this place to close down. It did great business. What you said before is far more important, I think, in many cities, obviously New York, but many others too these days, is that usually in New York, for a commercial rental, you get a 10-year lease, and then it goes up 5, 6, 10 times. The best bread, I thought, in New York City, Zito's, in my neighborhood, which served lots of Italian restaurants. He'd been there for 50, 60 years. When the lease came due again, they increased it 5 times. And he was very old by then. He said, I can't do this anymore. He said, I can't work that hard. I can't raise the prices that much. So he retired. And 7 years later, it was still empty. Yeah. And I think this place...
I don't know if it still is now.
This place
but
has
last time I saw it, which was 7 years after it had closed, it was still empty.
This place we used to go for brunch, I think it's still empty. It's, nobody's rented it yet. So why raise the rates? Why not just keep the people there? It's
Accountant type people
I'm
tell me
getting
that
to
it
sound,
has to do with tax deductions.
I'm getting to sound like an old fart when
Yes, aren't we all? It comes with getting old. I think that you're just stuck with it,
why does this happen?
Yeah. It's the urban person's version of get off my lawn.
Yeah. But but it's sad because it would be nice, like I was thinking about this. When we were talking about this, this place closes down. 21, which was a speakeasy during Prohibition, is still open.
So there are a few. I think, isn't Delmonico's way downtown in the financial district? It's been there for 200 or 300 years.
Maybe, yeah. And it could be, and part of the reason is I think they own the building.
Well, see, that was what I had thought about the bread place. And it was so great to walk by it at night because the ovens were in the basement.
Yeah.
So when you walked by at night going home, you got the wonderful aroma of bread baking as you headed home. But I always wondered, why didn't you just buy the damn building? It must have come up from time to time while you were there for 50 or 60 years.
But you know what happens also? Let's say you do own the building, okay? And now, all of a sudden, here come developers saying, hey, this is a nice piece of land. We want to buy it from you so we can build a 50-story building or something like that.
Yeah.
And there's enough money in it, and you go, fuck it, why do I have to keep serving sandwiches, In fact, what they're doing now, we now have these new buildings in New York, which I say is the new skyline of New York, which are these, what I call them pencil buildings.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They go up, they're higher maybe than the Empire State Building.
Lots are these days.
But they have a very small footprint. And I'm thinking they bought a bodega from somebody. And then tried to figure out a way that they could put a building in there.
So it's a little tiny piece of land way up, though.
It's exactly what they do, So I mean, but that if somebody wants to buy it, you're going to sell, especially if they really, because land here is very expensive. So,
well, I think the thing is that the way the prices go for anything in New York having to do with real estate is you always could sell it. If you really liked what your business was, you could still keep doing it.
My great love always, and I'm sure probably yours once I mention it, is P.J. Clark's, which is a bar.
But I wasn't one of the in crowd,
which is
so didn't attract me that much.
One-story building, maybe three-story building, I don't know, but it was a bar, and they owned the building, okay? And then all of a sudden, somebody wanted to come and build a giant skyscraper, right? And they wanted to buy P.J. Clark's. And P.J. Clark said, fuck you. So they literally built the building around P.J. Clark's.
You know, I can't swear to this, but I have a sense that downtown, in the village, that NYU, New York University, did that around the house of some 19th century writer, I can't remember. Edgar Allan Poe.
Yes.
I'm not positive, but I think that's what happened with the place he had once lived.
Yeah.
And they built a building around it the same kind of way.
Yeah. I remember seeing in China, there was this guy who refused to move. And they were literally building this huge, I mean, I don't know, you've never been to Beijing, but the size of the buildings is amazing. Just amazing. I mean, just a footprint, okay? And they were building the thing around this one guy's little house. It was like this ditch around him. You know.
On YouTube somewhere, I don't know the name of it to tell you, and I don't remember what city, but it's not a U.S. city. It's either Canada or Europe. There's a between two buildings, there's like very narrow, like less than 6 or 7 feet wide, and somebody built a house in there, a very, very, very narrow house. And but vertical, so there's like 5 stories, and you can stand in the middle of the house and touch either wall.
I wouldn't be surprised if in the future they take one of these small little footprints and then put a building up, and then as soon as they get higher than the buildings around them, move it out and let it balloon out.
Oh, that's an interesting idea. By the air rights, you mean?
By the air rights, yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But, but the New York that we moved into had a sense of danger. When the subway went by, there was so much graffiti on the trains that it was like this blur of color. I almost enjoyed it in a strange way.
There's an old joke about New York that I first heard when we first moved there, and I've always loved it. It's a Q&A. The question is, when was New York really, really great? Just before you got there.
I mean, I just don't, maybe it's because I'm older and I don't do the nightlife and things like that, but I don't find anything exciting about New York. I just find it big, crowded, expensive, what have you, you know? Of course, I would, because I grew up in the country, I would love to, like, you know, live like you do and maybe a little more rural.
I've got an idea.
What? We'll trade apartments.
We
trade apartments. You have to discuss that with my wife, who refuses to move out of New York City.
Well, I understand. I'm with her.
You know,
I'm so sorry I had to leave.
You know, she says, there's no way we're moving out. I said, well, you know.
Well, if it ever gets to that, I'm sitting here and out my window, there's a few more apartment buildings. They're only 2 stories high, lots of trees and grass and mountains all around you.
Yeah.
And I would just love to be in Manhattan again.
Oh, well, you know, we have a guest room, by the way.
And so do I.
You know, I mean, and the guest room this summer is being taken up quite often. So, you know, it's amazing. So anyway, you're feeling good. Life is.
I feel fine.
Life is fine. You know.
No complaints.
Woman's a survivor. She not only survived ill health a while back, cancer, but she also survived me, which I think is even a bigger accomplishment. You know,
it was okay. Yeah, I think that it would have been easier if we were old when we met.
Well, you know, let me put it this way: Marjorie and I look at each other sometimes and just go, "So this is what it's come to, huh?" You know, we never talk divorce because it's ridiculous. You know, at this age, you know, when you're young, hey, maybe I got another 2 wives in me.
I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, but at our age, you go, well, at least the company's fine, So, what have you. But it's always a pleasure talking to you, and it's as I say, it's so nice that we can reminisce about New York City, and you told your little story about people yelling at you. There were just one last thing here. There were always the street corner screamers in New York. We don't have those anymore.
Really?
No, I haven't come across one in a long time.
I have to tell you one quick one. I was walking, a friend of, I think it was my brother's girlfriend back in those days, was visiting New York, and I don't think she was staying with me, but we were spending some time, and she'd come to my apartment, and we were walking from my place on Bedford Street to wherever we were going, and we walked by a guy who was begging, who I recognized, and once in a while I gave him money when I went past. But that time we were busy talking, and I didn't want to hunt for the change or anything. So we just kept going right past him, and then I hear him yell. She was very tall and very thin and gorgeous and much younger than I was. And we passed, and then I hear him yell at us, "I never met a blonde who didn't have money." I love that stuff in New York. There was another time I'm coming out of the subway on a horrible, horrible hot evening, sweaty and just at the worst of that kind of summer day that New York can provide. And we're crowded going up the stairs, and I hear a voice right in my ear saying, "Would you go to the movies with me?" I was probably in my 40s at the time. And I turn around, and there's about a 19-year-old, very good-looking Puerto Rican kid. And I was so shocked. I said, "I'm old enough to be your mother." And he said, "Yeah, but I loves my mama."
I remember once walking down the street, this was on Broadway, and a guy goes, spare change, right? And I just walked by him, because that's what you do. You don't engage them, you just walk by. And as I get about 5 steps away from him, he goes, "You heard me."
I miss that stuff in New York so much.
Yeah, well, if I at least had that, I would be happy with New York. But we don't have that anymore,
Or maybe you don't get out and about as much to see it.
That could be. Anyway, Ronnie, always wonderful talking to you, and we'll do this again in a couple of weeks, okay?
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Take
the
care.
fabulous Ronnie. Oh, let's tell them where they can find you. TimeGoesBy.net, which is her blog, and it's all about what it's like to get really old.
And as of today, we're starting the storytelling again.
Okay. Bye-bye, Ronnie.
Bye.
Celebrating 4 years of talk like you've never heard it before. This is GABNET, the Great American Broadcast Network.
And here I am again. I got to tell you something. Things always happen at the last minute on a show. Like this interview is coming to an end, so I'm going with my mouse, right? I'm taking my mouse and I'm moving her, and there's no arrow. There's no nothing. It's just not happening. And I suddenly realized that, so I immediately look, and the red light is flashing on the bottom of it, and I figure, I don't know what that is, but I better change the battery. And then I'm rifling around, and the interview's slowly coming to an end, and I'm rifling around doing the looking in my thing for a battery, and finally I find one, and I'm delighted that I found it. But then I got to get it into the mouse before it's just in time. I got the mouse, the new battery in the mouse. Actually, I got this thing maybe a year ago, and I haven't changed the battery in it. So there's the battery. And there goes the battery. Okay, anyway, I'm going to open up the lines here. What is left of the current version of Skype, which goes the way of all flesh in a couple of weeks, and then we're going to see whether we still have any kind of show going here. But we'll figure that out as time goes by. But meanwhile, we want to hear from you. If you don't know how to get a hold of this program, go over to gabnet.net. And at least for the time being, it tells you how to get Skype. And you get Skype, and then you call us using Skype. I think all the Gabnet.net on the right-hand side of the page. And by the way, you can still see the video of this because the video is running right now on Gabnet.net. Give me you go over there and there's just a whole litany of how you can do this. Now, last week was really slow. I mean, deadly slow for callers. And I don't know what the problem was, but if it happens this week, maybe I'll be glad when the new Skype comes along and I can give up on this whole mess. But we certainly didn't lack for viewers of the videos after the fact. Here's the reason why. I didn't know something. I have a Facebook page I didn't even know I had. That's right. If you go over to facebook.com/Alex Bennett Program, all one word, you will find I have a Skype page there. So I had a program which would send videos over to Facebook, but it wouldn't do it. It wouldn't do it immediately. It wouldn't do it to the old, like what's called my timeline. And it seems as though Facebook has done away with that, I guess, for one reason or another. And it was sending it over to a page that said Alex Bennett, and I didn't know where that was, so I went and looked it up. Turns out that page actually was Alex Bennett Program. And I looked over there, and over at Gabnet Live, where we sometimes have a repository of this stuff, I have 256 followers. Over there, I have 2,300 followers. And the videos that I put up in the last couple of days were getting enormous amounts of people watching them. And I didn't even know that was happening. So it made me feel a lot better about the reach of this program. Hey, here's John Perulis. How are you, John? Good to see you.
Hi, Alex, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, because I switched cameras to a Microsoft LifeCam, and I tried to download drivers for it, and it said, no, if you're using Windows 10, which I hate, by the way, I just still, some of my laptops are on Windows 7. I appreciate that a lot more.
Really?
So there's no way I can adjust the settings.
I heard the reason they went to 10 was because 7 and 8 were so terrible.
Yeah, I never even tried them. I just bought a new laptop and it came loaded with 10, and I hate Microsoft add-ons.
But I don't find that much wrong with 10. I think that it's the first time I've ever liked a PC again. Let me put it that way.
Hey, can I show you what I'm working on right now?
Sure.
I'm gonna have to leave the show after 15 minutes.
Oh well, then you shouldn't have called. Then you shouldn't have called in the first place.
Flight that Phil was at again. There he is.
Yeah.
Hey, how you doing?
That's what I'm working on right now, is editing videos that we shot the other day. I almost had some expensive Sony headset stolen from me there, but the head of Dragon House saw the guy with one of my headsets, Sony, the same kind I'm wearing now, dangling out of his backpack. So he stopped the guy, and the guy, he said, "Hey, those are my headphones," and he got 2 of them back anyway, Phil. So.
Yeah, well, that's good news.
Yeah.
Nobody likes to have junk stolen from them, when they're working.
I got to tell you, Alex, Phil was so helpful on the shoot. We were in a new venue right next to Rosie the Riveters. It's called Craneway Pavilion. In fact, that's where they used to assemble tanks in World War II. The Rosie the Riveters worked on tanks too, and it's at the end of a big pier in Richmond. And the ships used to come in, the Liberty ships and so forth, and just load these tanks. It was such an easy operation. And then they can head out the Golden Gate and go to the Pacific or, whatever destination they had in those days. So, and
the city of Richmond would find a way to fuck it up.
Yeah, well, Phil was so helpful to me. There's always a lot of chaos setting things up. I do multicam. I had 3 cams operating on the shoot, and Phil's there running cable for me. And the guy bought sandwiches. I mean, for my whole crew. It's just an amazing thing. So,
So in other words, he bought your loyalty.
Well, it's the fair thing to do. He gave me wonderful access to shoot some great stuff, and I wanted to repay in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Phil, put your stuff on your Facebook page. Some of these that you got, they're really very artistic. I was quite impressed.
Yeah, well, thank you. I will. I've got to sit down and work with them. They're all shot in RAW, so you can't just put them up.
RAW is so weird. It's like when you shoot stills or video in RAW. I mean, the image that comes out is sort of foggy and weird. I can never figure that out. But the problem I see with it is that you have to use another program to manipulate the colors, and that's like, oh man, just another layer of stuff to do.
Listen, I have an idea. Can't you guys call each other on Skype and have this conversation? Because believe me, nobody out there cares what you're talking about.
Well, you should enjoy this. I mean, you did get an Emmy for video and things like that. This has been a big part of your life.
Hey, 20 people watching. That's not too bad.
Yeah, they're usually about 30.
Yeah, well, those are the ones that are still waiting for the drugs to wear off.
Yeah.
So,
hey, Alex, I caught the tail end of your show with your wife, ex-wife, and I got to say, I really appreciate the stories of the street people. I find that those folks are missing too, because they're in homeless camps in San Francisco. We have a few in San Rafael here, but I'm telling you, the people that are on the edge of reality, I really enjoy their company sometimes, because they'll say the funniest things and do the most outrageous things. And I think life is.
But you know what? I think the difference is today between the homeless people today and those homeless people is that I almost at times felt that those homeless people were the way they were and living the life they were living by choice. That it hadn't been that life dealt them some horrible blow, but that either psychologically or for whatever reason they wanted to do it. But by the way, you should also put your camera so that it doesn't keep focusing itself.
That's what I can't do. I was saying I'll have to break off of this camera and download some software or something, because there's no way I can control it.
You can
do also the white balance on it. You're real orange.
Yeah. Hey, just like your favorite.
No, but
president.
I mean, you can do at least do the focus thing in Skype. It's Skype that's doing it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Skype that's doing it.
Yeah.
Well, I hate this version of Skype. I mean, I used to be able to test audio and video easily on the old Skype. And I was looking for that on this one. I couldn't find it because I was trying to, make these adjustments and stuff. And I guess it's going to be moot if, you're saying they're giving up support for Skype, Alex, but they're still going to let the program filter on out there in cyberspace, right?
What do you mean? I don't understand what you're saying.
No, is the program going to end, or are they going to let it keep going in some way?
What program end?
The Skype
he
service.
said that as of September 1st, he won't be able to use the classic Skype that he's been using.
Current Skype.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because
I'm using the new improved whatever it is, and I don't like it.
Well, of course.
I see what's happening to me now. I'm getting in and out of. If I stay really still like a statue, then
but no, they it's typical of these companies that they take something and they say they're improving it when they're not improving it at all, or at least by the time they force you to go to it, it should be so improved that nobody will complain. But nobody likes this new Skype.
No.
Yeah. Are you using the new Skype, Phil?
No.
Are you using the new Skype? Jeff? Yeah, Jeff. What do you think of it?
Not as good as the old one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, and haven't I'm sure they've gotten. Well, of course, there's no way to get a hold of Skype, so I don't know how they're going to hear from people.
Well, it's Microsoft, so they got to keep a staff employed, and the geeks need to tweak the program somehow, to justify their existence there. So I think that's what we're seeing is that if this is a job someone has to look at this program and work on it and try to improve it, and so
I'm
doing,
sure that if they're
program.
seeing enough complaints saying we like the old Skype Classic,
yeah,
they should just stay with it. It wouldn't hurt them to stay with it and also have this one available as well.
How are they getting complaints if you can't call them?
Yeah,
well, that's the thing.
You can't call them.
Try and call or write.
Right.
Skype.
So they're deaf to the public's reaction to this.
Yeah, and I find that very upsetting. And so I went out. I did a lot of research one week. I mean, I've been working on this thing, testing out various ways of doing the picture. I may have to do the whole thing on my Mac, but there is a way I can do it on the PC. But I have to use another program in order to filter the Skype screen. It's a mess. It's just a mess. Here it's simple, but that's a mess. And
I wish there was some open source program.
Well,
like
no,
Skype.
no, but that's what I was going to say. I did my research. I went online and played around with every possible program that said that, well, if you don't like Skype, try us. I got news for you. None of them are as good as Skype. Now, I know that's hard to believe, but even Google, who has a thing called Google Hangouts.
Yeah, Hangouts.
Which is just pathetic. Absolutely pathetic.
Well, now, if you stay on that program, a full house is 4 people.
No, you can get. Believe it or not, you can get up to 25 people on the line at the same time.
But you can't see them.
But you can't see them because you get a little circle up in the top. The first couple, you get a picture.
You're supposed to be the ringmaster.
Yeah.
So therefore, if you can't control, who's talking or what, which
well, we're going to have a new rule. You don't raise your hand. You don't raise your hand. You shout your name, and then I can go up there and click on the circle that says 5 people are in here and find you and drag you down.
Oh, that's a lot of work.
I know it's a lot of work.
Especially if it's Steve or somebody that's saying something that doesn't need to be said anyway.
I mean, what in what world do they think that only 4 people want to talk at the same time?
Yeah. Well, again, we're talking about free software, right? Because we could go to GoToMeeting or something like that.
Oh, you really you want to go to GoToMeeting? They suck too.
Well,
those things are good for one-way conversations.
Yeah, GoToMeeting is great for meetings, okay?
Yeah.
But not for what we do here.
Yeah, you have a presenter presents their thing, and you're the audience. But it doesn't
and I can't figure out Google Hangouts. I just can't figure it out. I mean, I think there's some way to make it work, but it's, what they should do is they should have incorporated, since I'm using YouTube, which is a Google product, okay? They should have found an easy way for me to do Google Hangouts on YouTube. I just do YouTube and I say I want to do a Google Hangouts YouTube, and I suddenly have a place where all you guys can call in. Why haven't they done that? What's holding them back?
Yeah, I'd love to see Twitch take this on and institute a version of what they do that's like Skype.
Twitch is for gamers. It's a
yeah,
gamer.
I know, but they also have interesting dynamics and video production.
But not this kind of thing. They
Yeah,
don't have
that's
group
right.
calling.
Well, that's what I'm saying, that they should move into
Well,
this
I mean,
kind
there's
of thing.
Twitch and there are a ton of other ones that should be doing it, but none of them. There's what were some of the ones I looked at, and some of them were just pathetic. And they said, "Oh, we're better than Skype." Yeah, really? Show me.
Well, I guess if you're going to do it in video, it's one thing. Or if you're going to do it in audio, you could probably do it over phone lines.
No, I could go back to just doing the show on audio, or doing the show. But how do when people want to jump in and say something? How do I know when I can't see all of them who wants to talk? So then I guess I have to click on the bubble that says 5, and I guess I see 5 people, or if it says 6, there's 6 people in there. I mean, I don't know. I haven't done it yet.
Hey, I've got a Ukrainian tech friend. I'll ask him if the Ukrainians or the Russians have anything like Skype. Maybe we could use that.
But Jeff, did you say you're using the new Skype?
Yeah.
Yes, I am.
Jeff?
Oh,
okay, so what happens when there's more than 4 people on at a time? What happens?
You only get to see 4 in the small picture of the rest.
Right. That's right.
There's a picture of each of them?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
they're
okay.
small.
They're small, and if we have more.
Hey, I could show you right now.
Oh, wait a minute. Let me hold on a second. No,
Yeah,
I don't.
Well,
I don't need to see it because we don't have enough here now. Okay, so it doesn't matter.
So right now I'm seeing the 3 of you guys.
Yeah, but we don't have
myself.
Yeah.
In a small square.
Right. Now, when you've come on here and there are like maybe 7 people, 8 people. All those other people are their own individual circle?
Their own little circles.
Okay.
Yeah, to see that I'm showing you what
Except
I'm seeing.
Okay.
Maybe I always see like 3 or 4 people fully organized.
Fully organized, and then you see circles of everybody else.
Right. And let's say you're one of the small people.
Yeah.
I can pick you up.
Yeah, and drop me in. Yeah.
And get rid of Phil.
Jeff, if the small circle starts talking, do they automatically go into one of the larger spaces?
No, it's not that sophisticated.
Yeah.
No. No, it's only a manual change.
I see.
Okay,
the only changes I notice is like at the beginning, if like we have just 2 people and then we have 3 people, and then people start going into the small.
Little.
Okay, but there's a circle for everybody else that's there, not just one circle that has a whole bunch of them in the circle.
Even when he has 10 people.
Yeah.
If there's 10 people, there should be. I would think there would be, I don't know what, 7
little dots.
People in the circle.
Well, Jeff, you're right. What I'm seeing is just 4 windows, and that's it.
We'll find out when that happens, but the way things have been going, I don't even need those. I mean, here we are on a Monday. I got low audience numbers. I got...
well, if we're here on a Monday,
Tuesday, here on a Tuesday.
You don't have any audience.
Here on a Tuesday, and I don't know who the hell this is. It's probably Steve calling from yet another phone number. Hello, who is this? Who is this?
Hey, it is Steve.
Yeah, Steve, you always call from a different phone number.
This time I am. I'm at a friend of my sister's. I'm on a real phone. You could probably tell.
Really? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let's see here. I'm trying to actually put your name on here, but I can't do it. So.
Okay.
Yeah,
rename. Here we go.
Jim D'Elia. Sorry, but
no, you don't have to give me his name. I'm just putting your name in here so I know who it is. Okay. All right. There we go.
Yeah, but if he's using a friend's phone, then you're going to be logging in the friend's.
No, every time he calls me from that phone, it would say Steve.
I won't use this often, but when I'm here, this is in the town I grew up in, and he was a friend of my sister's, and I'm just here. He's got air conditioning and good things, so I stay for a while.
Oh boy, it's getting boring. Anyway,
so it's pretty hot out by you guys, huh?
It's horrible.
Where are you?
I'm in New Jersey.
Oh, New Jersey, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's right outside of New York City, Bergen County, Pacific
folks,
County.
if you've got anything better to do, I'd suggest go doing it. Anyway, hi. So let's let me see here. So anyway, what's going to happen on the 1st is I'm just going to have to tackle this whole thing and probably do it from the Mac, in which everybody will probably be. I don't know. We'll see. It may work out just fine. I mean, I may hate it for a while, but I'll find a workaround, and we'll do it right. But they've made it so that, for instance, on the PC with the programs I use, like OBS and what's the other program I use here?
Wirecast.
XSplit. You can't do Skype immediately on it, you know. But there is a way I can do it, but it's so clumsy that I hate to do it. I have to launch another program that somehow reads the Skype picture. You know, I mean, they just fucked this whole thing up for everybody.
Yeah, they did. Yeah. Hey, Steve, do you have crazy people on your street?
Well, I'm on a
Steve.
main thoroughfare.
Steve is the
where
crazy
I actually
person on the
live.
street.
You know, where I actually live is a main thoroughfare, and I'm sure there are plenty of crazy people. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I know we got a bunch living in the White House, but you know, I wonder if that counts.
They're crazy, and they're really, I don't even know what kind of craziness I could describe that as, but they are absolutely, they're crazy and they're out of their minds.
Well,
so,
if you're saying it, then I suppose they are. Yeah.
I think so. You know. Yeah.
I want to know why comedians think that they're qualified to comment on politics, where, you know, most comedians grew up, the only reason they were funny was because if they weren't, they got beat up as kids. You know, what makes them qualified to?
What makes
politics?
Will Durst qualified to talk politics? He's a political comic.
I don't know that he is.
He's a political comic. What gives Bill Maher that ability? Well, he's defined as a political comic. They make you know, it's like saying why is Will Rogers commenting about what goes on in Congress? He's just a movie actor. No, he was a political comedian. He made political commentary.
Politics is comedy. It's a level of comedy.
And quite frankly, what makes a reality show host think he can talk about politics?
He got elected.
Yeah, but that's about the extent of it, you know.
And
they're really
anybody who has a stage and wants to talk out about the politics of the day, I think has the right to do so. I'll tell you what I'm a little bit mixed up on here, and I haven't been able to figure out in my mind or justify in my mind, but I'm a little upset about what they did to Alex Jones.
Yes, I agree.
Now, let me start out by saying, so none of you go, you think Alex Jones is okay, and with the whole thing with the school up in Connecticut, and he didn't thought it was a hoax. No, I think Alex Jones is a whack job. I think that he's dangerous because he doesn't think about the safety of his audience. You know, he puts his audience in danger in a lot of cases, but I just think that banning him from a public forum like Facebook or a public forum like iTunes or any of these public forums that have taken him off is absolutely wrong and is against the very reason these things exist in the first place. And
this is the kind of selective news that we're hearing now. This is what Trump says is fake news.
No. This isn't what is fake news. This is.
No, we're talking about freedom of speech.
This is companies. You listen to me, Phil. These are companies.
He's giving you what you want to hear.
The companies trying to save their ass. You know, by looking and posturing for political correctness. And I find that, you know, if Facebook says, hey, whatever you want to post on our pages, then that should be our freedom to do that. You know, because if they go after Alex Jones, what's to say tomorrow they don't come after me, you know, because I might be saying something bad about Facebook.
My comment on Facebook threads about this story was the right to freedom of speech means freedom of speech.
Well, freedom of speech is an absolute. It's not freedom of speech, except.
Is Facebook really a public forum, or is it a company?
I think when they say all comers can have a page here to say what they want to say. They have made it a public forum.
But
whether you want to, they make up those rules as they go
understand,
along.
Because it's their company.
No,
they
but
have certain standards that they set.
It's not like the FCC governs.
Right.
You know, you could say, and I could say, fuck here, and I'm not going to be cut off or anything.
Yeah.
But because the FCC does not regulate this.
Yeah, but
it's a publicly traded, but it's still a commercial business.
Oh, we've been joined by Jack Bishop. Jack, turn on your camera.
Oh, okay. You know, I swore I was not going to do this.
Why? Why'd you swear you weren't going to do it? A lot of other people are swearing they're not.
Hey, John.
A lot of other people are swearing they're not going to do it, and they live up to it. What?
I would like to answer Mr. Meyer's comment and question about what gives someone the right to comment about politics.
The authority or the right?
The right.
Well, everyone has the right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just what makes them qualified is what I asked.
Well, what makes anybody qualified?
No one's qualified.
Well, I know that none of you guys are qualified, but, you know.
Not me.
And neither are you. You know, you don't give up your right to comment about the political process just because of your occupation. Hell, if that was true, half of the people in Congress wouldn't be talking about any damn thing.
Where did John Peroulis go?
He said he had to sign off. He's working. He's
well, then he
editing.
Then he should have never called in the first place.
No, I talked to him today.
He should have never called.
Yeah, call in.
No, he should have never called in the first place if he can't stick around. You know.
No, that's not true. That was never the deal.
Well, that's my deal.
Oh,
no,
wait a minute.
It was never the deal.
Huh?
All right. Was that deal in writing, Phil?
No, it wasn't the deal.
Then it wasn't.
There was never a rule on Gabnet that said you had to stick around the whole time.
Mr. Bennett's house, Mr. Bennett's rules.
His glove, his ball. You know,
that's right.
Yeah.
His game. Yeah. But you should be lucky the guy calls. He's a good guy.
Well, he hardly calls anymore.
No, he was an All-American. He wasn't a good guy.
Huh?
No, he was a good guy. He wasn't an All-American. All right.
But I'm happy he called, and you should be too.
I'm not. Let me see here.
You're never happy.
Well, I can't get rid of it. I can't get rid of his square though. There we go.
There we go. How does this thing sound?
I wish Alex would do it more often because we go back such a long ways.
Yeah.
He knew me before I had hair under my armpits.
Jack, I am so glad that you're on here. You have no idea. The two of you are equally, in my opinion, so much worthwhile.
This guy's a sick puppy. He thinks you and I are.
I told you, he's the guy who, when people are weird, says they're weird. And when he says they're weird, they are weird.
Now, the weirdest guy in our business I ever worked with was a guy that had a foot fetish.
Uh-oh. Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah. But anyway, let's get back to what I was talking about.
Yeah.
Alex Jones.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
Now, I just feel that, it's interesting, Phil, that, you're taking Facebook's side on this.
Yeah, because they're a.
Oh, I see. In other words, okay.
It's a publicly traded company, but that's what it is a company, and they don't guarantee anyone a right to free speech. They say that you can use their platform as long as you abide by their rules, and they're the ones that make the rules.
All right. Give me a list and tell me those rules. You use Facebook. What are the rules?
I think you can't say things that are inflammatory or hate speech or things like that. But it's funny.
What defines hate speech? Who's going to define that hate speech?
Well, I can tell you that if it comes from a liberal, it's not hate speech.
No, hold on.
It's free speech.
Forget that
look, I have
joking.
Some friends.
You always turn everything into a joke rather than deal with the subject.
All right. I have some friends that are so pro-liberal that everything they post is anti-Trump, that the guy's a scumbag, he's this, he's that, he's bad for the country. There are hate things in there. They want him to die. They want him to have a heart attack. You yourself has said you want him in the center of a stadium where people all pray that he has a heart attack. Now, is this not hate speech? The only thing that you didn't say was Sig Heil.
No. People should not pray.
I'm asking people. I'm asking people to pray, Phil.
Yeah. Okay. Jack wanted to.
Yes, Jack.
I'll tell you what I pray for. I pray that something happens. I don't want it to be detrimental or anything like that, but I just pray that something happens that gets him the hell out of there as soon as possible.
Okay, and then what are you going to do about Pence, Steve?
Oh, he's almost
okay.
worse.
So
because he has some intelligence and he doesn't use it.
Yeah.
Trump is just a buffoon.
Pence is insurance. Okay. Yes, Jack.
Phil, I just wanted to point out to you that for 7 of the 8 years that the last guy was in office, he endured the same kind of stuff. It's just it's our turn now.
Nowhere near.
Nowhere near. Racist. Racist
being given.
Oh, go back and take a look. It's jump ball. That's all.
Because they pull the race card every time somebody said something against Obama.
And you know something? In most cases, the race card was appropriate.
There are 2 race cards in the deck. They are American cards. We have a right to play them.
There are 2? That's your rules now, huh?
Yeah, listen.
This is nothing more than identity politics. People are being divided, and Facebook and the Russians have done a very good job of causing the liberals.
When have we not been a divided nation?
Well, right now we're more divided than we've ever been.
So I asked the question. Name me one time we have not been a divided nation.
Right now,
time.
America is being divided in a way. I think they're all being manipulated, and this is maybe a Russian attack or a Chinese attack. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but as far as I can see, there is an attack on this nation, and people are falling into lockstep with the fake news, and liberals are really falling into lockstep.
When have we not been a divided nation? Maybe a time in our
Phil, is MSNBC fake news?
Yeah. I can't say again.
Is MSNBC fake news?
In a way, yes, but so is Fox.
So is Fox.
Yeah,
okay.
They're both. Yeah.
How about Newsmax?
Yeah. Isn't that
okay? So what you're saying is any news, anybody who reports is fake.
Yes, for this reason. And let me
explain. Wait a minute. Who isn't fake? Who isn't fake news? Name me an outfit
that isn't. I'll tell you in a minute.
Okay.
I'll tell you in a minute. What's happening is all of these networks are trying to vie for eyeballs, and what they're doing is they're only reporting certain stories. If you hear a story that's, let's say, pro-gun, you're never going to hear it on MSNBC because they're going to report those stories that yield the end
You're
result.
Not answering my question,
yeah,
Phil.
That's not really fair because MSNBC, they will talk about it. They'll report about it. They may dispute it.
No, they won't even mention.
Talk about it.
Look. I am not going to argue that there aren't biases on the parts of these various networks because somehow that's how the game has started to be played. Is take your stance and then stick with it. Okay.
Yes.
If you're Fox, you're in one place. If you're MSNBC, you're in another place. If you're CNN, you're kind of in another place. And
if you're NRA TV, you're in another place.
Well, but what I'm saying is, tell me where I can go and not get fake news.
I don't think you can.
Oh, okay. Well, then what you're saying is any news is fake news.
Yes.
Why is it fake news?
Because they're trying to I believe,
Phil,
that the
let me put
media,
it this way. Let's say tomorrow I made you
the
a
media got Trump elected.
Let's say tomorrow
now they want to take him down.
The media didn't get him elected. His big fat fucking mouth trying to monopolize the conversation got him elected.
I do the same thing. If it wasn't for the media giving Trump all of that free press, it enabled him.
I agree
to
with you. I agree with you. And I was talking to Ronnie tonight about the fact that it's a dysfunctional relationship between the press and Trump, and it's like a guy who beats his wife and she sticks around because she figures she can change him.
A love-hate relationship.
So but the fact is that if I've said this before and I'll say this again, Trump thinks that the media is the enemy of the people, then the media should stop reporting him. Only report those things which are truly important to your daily lives. In other words, he passes a bill, or he goes somewhere other than on the stump for some Republican somewhere.
Is there a network? Is there a network that does that?
No, but they should all get together and say, you don't like us? We're not going to report you. We're only going to report you when you do something that is actually newsworthy. Because you going to Colorado to stump for a politician out there is not news. Yes,
that's true.
Yes, Jack.
Phil was talking about how the networks search for eyeballs. Let's put it in the context of the business that Alex and I both worked in for so many years. Name me any hard rock station that ever played a country tune. They know their audience. You serve your audience. Nothing wrong with that. The problem is we in this country have this illusion of about how press operates. You go outside of this country and you will find that there's left-wing press in some countries, right-wing press, government press.
Well, I disagree with you on this. I disagree with you in this respect, Jack. There was a time, to quote Phil, when radio stations did play country on a top 40 station. If it was in the top 40. Or they'd play Frank Sinatra in the top 40 on top 40 stations.
He said hard rock, though.
But Jack
said hard rock.
Yeah,
that was the greatest period.
I said hard rock. As we fractionalized our industry, because
you see, here, let me tell you why I don't like what you just said. Because I heard that same thing from the guy who was the head of talk programming at Clear Channel. And his thing was, you don't put classical music on a rock station. And I tried to say, yeah, but this is a talk station. It's an entirely different animal. You know, you can't compare it to running a music station. And on a music station, you wouldn't keep playing the same song over and over and over again. And when you have nothing but conservatives on a radio station or nothing but liberals on a radio station, you're playing the same song over and over and over again.
All right, here in my market, one station, when they went to a talk format, after a couple of years, tried doing that. And it sunk so quickly that two good friends of mine wound up with no jobs.
Radio is so bruised, it's so fractured, and so marginalized today. It's really a dead medium. Alex, we were talking about the fire the other day. That here there was a radio station, and your ex-wife mentioned the large fire. It's the car fire in Reading, and in Reading there was a radio station.
By the way, why are they calling it the car fire? Was it started by a car?
Yeah, but they spelling it CARR. I
okay.
don't know. I don't know why.
I heard the explanation for that today, and I wish I could tell you. It had to do with the specific area around.
Because I lived up in that area at one time, and I never heard of anything called car.
Neither have I, but they say it was started by a car, but they're spelling it with two R's, and I don't know why. But
it's like the singer Vicky Carr.
Yeah, I don't think she started it either. But what I was saying about the radio station, because of voice tracking, this radio station, you would never know that there was a fire.
That's exactly
surrounding
the point.
The station.
Yeah, and that's what's wrong with radio today. There's no the great thing about a radio station was, in the midst of a fire like this, they could become a very valuable asset to the community by giving out warnings about where the fire is going and when it's going. But they can't do that in Reading because all the stations are being programmed from somewhere else. And in the future, because they just passed a rule, you don't even have to have offices in that town. All you have to have is a transmitter.
Well, my buddy is the PD that programs the station, and he was upset that no one got on there and then just tapped into a live feed from the local TV station or something and gave this news. You know, they can do that.
You wouldn't need to do that if you had a staff doing original programming at that station. You go on the air and you cover it.
But that's not how it operates now, because people don't want to spend any money. You know, they don't even have their own PD. He's doing seven different stations.
Phil, I hate to tell you,
and engineers, forget it. Engineers are all contracted.
Those companies never did want to spend any money.
Right.
They wound up having to spend money because at one time we had some rules and regulations with some teeth in them.
Yeah. But anyway, getting back to Alex Jones, which is what started this whole thing. You know, I am conflicted about these people taking him off. I think he's dangerous. I think he is irresponsible. I think he doesn't think of his audience's safety in what he does. But nevertheless, if you've got an open forum, if you're letting Hannity have his site, and you're letting every other talk show host in America, including Alex Bennett, use your services, then I think that he has a right to be on. And,
how about these anti-FATA people?
I do too. I agree.
How about these anti-FATA people and these Black Lives Matters and these other things that are calling for certain kinds of protests and violent protests against Republicans that want to speak, and they're using Facebook as a vehicle?
What violent protests have you heard Black Lives Matter call for? Name one.
The ones in Texas where the 5 cops got shot and killed.
Hey, nothing to do with Black Lives Matter, and you know it, and I know it too. So don't tell that lie.
And and by the way, Jack is calling us from Texas. He knows what goes on in Texas.
Yeah, I understand. But in Dallas, there was 5 cops that was shot, and they said it was a Black Lives Matter protest.
Yeah, but was it, let's say it was. Was it as a result of a Facebook post?
They used Facebook and Twitter and other platforms
do you care to hear the real story? You want me to just shut up?
Yeah, well, you can shut up if you want. But, and also there are,
because you're not going to and listen to it.
There are groups like Hezbollah and others and ISIS that are using Facebook and to mobilize their members.
Well,
go ahead, Jack.
I'm sure they still are. I'm sure Facebook hasn't found them. But they found Alex Jones because he's hiding in plain sight.
Yeah, I interrupted.
Yes, you
Jack.
did interrupt Jack.
Yeah. Here's the story on what happened in Dallas.
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter did have a rally in Dallas. Mm-hmm. Up until the shooting incident, it was peaceful. As a matter of fact, you had Black Lives members going up to police officers, being, hi, hello, how are you? Thank you for being here to protect us. The guy that did that was a former U.S. vet who was being treated by the VA for, stress syndrome.
Yeah.
And the guy went crackers.
And you don't think that this event triggered his actions?
Well, first of all, look, any black man in America who isn't pissed off is crazy. And that was said more than 50 years ago by James Baldwin, not by Jack Bishop.
Is he one of the Baldwin brothers?
See, you always make a joke about something when we talk seriously. It's amazing.
Yeah,
you should.
you should at least you get some comedy.
You should teach that technique to Trump. He can put it in his kit bag.
Yeah.
And pack his troubles.
Yeah. Hello, Kevin. By the way, to me, I just feel uncomfortable anytime I hear about anybody getting censored. Okay, even if I totally disagree with them, and even if they are ISIS and Nazis, okay, I feel uncomfortable because I feel that that is then making a judgment, allowing someone to make a judgment about what's proper and what's not proper. You know,
it's called an editor. Don't they have editors on newspapers that determine what gets printed?
No, editors sit there to correct copy and to clean it up and to make sure it is in proper English. That's what an editor does.
But there are editorials that are written for newspapers, and doesn't the editor or someone at the newspaper decide?
It's a newspaper. It's not Facebook. It's not like a giant chalkboard where you can write anything on it you want to.
That's right. That's what I said before, that you know, because it isn't a giant chalkboard that anyone can write anything they want on.
But it is. It is. Facebook is exactly that. And if you ask them why they created Facebook, it was so people could share their thoughts with other people.
Yeah, but it was
but now we're saying, but you know, you can't share that thought because we don't approve of it. Now look, I feel that Alex Jones is an asshole, and that what he says is dangerous, and dangerous in that it could potentially harm people. And in spite of the fact that I believe that, I will stand up for his right to be there. I also stand up for everybody else's right to go on that same. What? What were you saying, Kevin?
Facebook is basically playing FCC.
Yes, exactly.
Is Alex Jones perpetrating fake news in your opinion?
Yes,
in my opinion.
Yes.
Whether he is
and is Facebook trying to limit fake news on their platform?
Well, according to you, then they should take MSNBC and Fox off as well.
Yes, they should.
Oh,
you know, and just leave it for grandmothers to show pictures of their grandchildren to their friends, and that's what Facebook should do.
The logic, everything should be shut down.
Yes.
The way we need to look at Facebook is it's like the graffiti wall.
Yeah.
You cut there with your paintbrush, you put your shit on it, and you walk away.
Well, I don't want to see dicks on the wall. You know, I want to see pictures of people's grandchildren.
We don't care what. Then you go to somebody else's page.
Yeah, there is no other page. Well, I block everybody. You know.
Well, I mean, they do. They censor pornography on Facebook, although they don't on Twitter. On Twitter, I can find hardcore porn.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Twitter hasn't. They haven't banned him yet, have they?
No, Twitter has not banned Alex.
Haven't banned Trump.
Yeah. You know? They haven't banned Alex Jones.
Let's not go there because he's...
And I, you know, I mean, I think more of them for not doing that. Now, I don't know, did YouTube ban Alex Jones too?
Yeah, they did.
You know,
everybody but Twitter.
Yeah, but sometimes these things get out of hand. Like, what was the girl country group that got banned by all the country stations?
The Dixie Chicks. The Dixie Chicks.
Oh, Dixie Chicks.
Yep. That was censorship in the highest order.
Yeah.
That was a protest. They were protesting their position on the war. That Dixie Chicks, I don't think, supported the war in Iraq.
Right, and the the country radio stations pulled their records so fast that they were like frisbees going out a window.
Yes.
Same shit. Same thing.
Yeah.
So was that right?
No, it wasn't right. Wasn't right. And I'm defending a guy who goes against every political position I could possibly have.
Weren't you in the same position a few years ago with CARE?
With who?
Was it CARE or there was a left-wing group that was unhappy with your position? They tried to get you fired from Live 105, didn't they?
You were talking about GLAD?
I'm not sure of the acronym, but there was one that tried to didn't like what you were saying, and
they didn't like they didn't. It wasn't they didn't like what I was saying. They didn't like what Sam Kinison was saying on my show, and I told GLAD to go shove it up their ass which they then said, that sounds like a nice idea. But anyway, I told them to shove it up their ass, I actually stormed out of this meeting telling them that this is censorship on your part. You know, you're listening to the guy with a skewed view, and then they played us a tape of all the horrible things he had said, but they were totally out of context from the rest of his act, you know.
No, this was something. These were guys going after you, not after Sam Kinison or what he said.
The only other guy that went after the only guy I went after me was in San Francisco was some guy who wrote to my sponsors. And
no, that wasn't the. It wasn't.
I
the
don't know. Then
guy.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'm sure Tom Yamaguchi would remember it. But
I don't remember it. If I don't remember it, how's Tom?
You don't
Yamaguchi?
remember me.
Well, I still think you've been putting me on. Anyway, yes, Jack.
Look, if you're a talk show host and you're doing anything that is engaging and creditable, you're going to have somebody come after you. It's part of the dues you pay for what you do.
But I'll tell you what happens, and I'll tell you there's a terrible thing that's happened to this guy, James Gunn, the director of the Guardians of the Galaxy films, the guy who wrote them and directed them. And they're really great little films. He got fired by Disney because of some tweets he did 10 years ago making jokes about pedophilia and something else. And some conservative talk show host dug into his past, found these tweets, and then put them up on Twitter and saying, how can Disney have somebody like this who would do this kind of thing? This is a conservative, right-wing talk show host. And Disney immediately fired Gunn from the series. Not asking any questions, not saying, hey, this happened 10 years ago, not even asking Gunn what happened. Gunn said, hey, these were meant to be jokes. They were bad jokes, but they were jokes. And they fired him. Now all the Guardians of the Galaxy actors and crew are demanding that he be hired back by Disney, but it doesn't look like they're going to. Now, this is a company that allowed themselves to be bullied by somebody they don't even know by material that was 10 years old.
Hey, they did the same thing to Roseanne Barr. You know, I mean, the thing that she said about Valerie Jarrett, I don't think was so bad.
I think it was terrible. But
it was terrible.
But wait a minute. But she apologized for it, and that should have been enough. And it's on, 5 years ago. Well, let me read something to you. But 5 years ago, this wouldn't have even been an issue. We just weren't as sensitive about these things. But Bret Easton Ellis, you know who he is, the writer, claims free speech is being muzzled in the current political climate, and Hollywood's become more uninteresting as creativity is stifled. Speaking to Rolling Stone, the author of the generation-defining book Less Than Zero and the screenwriter for American Psycho has said, the recent stifling of speech in the current political climate means everyone feels muzzled now, and it comes down to how much you can take. Can I talk about what I'm feeling and say my opinion? You get to a point where there's a break, a fissure, and you either decide to go through it and be yourself, or you decide to hide. I don't know what kind of life it's like to hide. I feel more comfortable expressing myself as a completely transparent man now.
So do you think that...
No, we're living in a time where people feel muzzled, and where Disney goes batshit because somebody wrote a tweet 10, 15 years ago that was now unearthed by some right-winger who doesn't like James Gunn's political opinions.
But in Hollywood, if you say something negative about Trump, that's hailed. If you say Trump should be buggered by old men, people would say, "Oh, that's great. We hate Trump." But if you say
I don't think that's true, Phil.
Well, look at his star on the Walk of Hollywood. They're not even going to replace it.
Well, they're not going to replace it because every time they put it back, somebody else digs it up.
Yeah, well, there's ways of making sure that doesn't happen. You can put something around it.
No, it's a rather spurious reason why there's even a star on the Walk of Fame for him anyway. I mean, a reality star? Fuck you.
It was a TV thing.
He's not a movie star. He's not a big...
No, but he had. It has a TV symbol on it.
Yeah, so?
Hey, Phil, if you want Trump to be hailed, you righties, you conservatives, you Republicans, need to start your own movie colony. You know, when black folks could not get jobs in Hollywood, what did black folks do? Started Black Hollywood.
I thought they went into the carpet business.
Making pictures for black audiences
Yeah.
that didn't feature Stephen Fetchit being a buffoon.
Well, they also, even in baseball, they had their own league. But I think that wasn't that non-integration was a negative thing. I think that was no different having their own league than it was telling them they had to have their own water fountain.
But you handle the situation the best you can. If you feel it's unfair, sure, you protest. You do what you can to change the situation.
No, but I think that's segregation.
And not do nothing.
I think that's nothing more than what they were doing in the South. You couldn't blacks couldn't go to this school because they were of the color of their skin. They couldn't drink from that water fountain.
You had almost the same thing in San Francisco for Asians in the early 90s.
Absolutely. This country has a sullied past.
Like I said earlier, name me a time when we haven't been divided over something.
There is no time.
Human beings will always find a way to other somebody.
Yeah, I agree with you. There has never been a time when we weren't divided. But now with the internet, with Facebook, with the news taking sides, Alex alluded to 20, 25 years ago when newscasts, you couldn't tell from the inflection in the guy's voice whether he was to the right or to the left. And there was some of these guys didn't even vote.
You still can't tell wait, hold on a second. Steve,
Steve, wait a minute.
Forget it. Go ahead, Steve. Go ahead, Steve.
No, what I wanted to say is, it's funny, we have all this media and all things that can unite us. And I think the younger people are more united, but the people who are, middle-aged and older, I think there's more division between them than the younger people.
I don't agree with that at all.
I gotta agree with Steve.
The people that are throwing rocks at windows when that guy Shapiro was going to speak, and that other gay right-wing guy, and they're burning dumpsters and so forth. There weren't old people out there. Those were college kids.
That's true. Yeah.
Okay, now can I make a point I was going to make?
You're allowed.
Yeah, I'm allowed. Phil, you said that in the old days we didn't have anchor people who you could tell their opinion, and you were quite right, Phil, because you're talking about MSNBC and CNN, and you're talking about these 24/7 operations that really are more entertainment than they are news, and they're trying to get an audience and so on. But what you're talking about is you only had 3 networks. And they did the news every night. Okay. Lester Holt, left or right? You don't know, do you?
Yeah, I think he's left.
You think? No, but do you have any reason to believe he's not right? You might be very surprised to find out he's a right-winger.
No, I don't have any.
Is there anything that tells you in his delivery that he's left or right?
Lester Holt. He seems to be more takes those more mundane stories like storms and things like
but
that.
That's not the question I'm asking you, Phil. Can you tell whether he's left or right?
No.
Okay. How about David Muir?
I don't know him.
No? Well, that's the guy on ABC. How about the guy on CBS every night, Jeff Glor?
Don't know him either.
So really, you don't watch the people who actually.
No, but
I can't tell you whether Glor is left or right. I can't tell you whether Muir is left or right because there's never been any indication when I watch them that I can tell.
What about Major Garrett?
Major Garrett is he's CBS. He used to be at Fox.
Well, he's at CBS now.
Yeah,
and whenever he talks about Trump in a negative way, you see this smile and smirk on his face that he's so happy.
That's funny because this was a guy who spent the last few years at a right-wing organization being a right-winger.
Well, he's certainly not one now.
And basically, he's a commentator, which is not about the news.
But that's what they all are.
No,
Jack. They're all commentators.
No, you're talking about on the cable news networks. I'm talking about the news, the thing that goes on at 7:30 every night, 6:30 every night. That's what I'm talking about. And those guys in their delivery, the anchors, you can't tell. You really can't.
You look at NBC, CBS, and these the broadcast news services. Their ratings are so low in comparison to.
We're not. You're
but
like
nobody's
you're
watching.
You're like Trump. You think ratings are everything. Ratings don't matter. We're talking about. You made a statement. You said to me, you can tell from the anchors where they stand, and I told you you can't. I can't. Okay. I don't know that Lester Holt isn't a Republican.
You have to separate.
Wait a minute.
You have to separate network news from the network news shows, because there's a difference between the network news shows and the network news reports.
Yeah.
Okay. What about CBSN?
CBSN is a cable is actually an internet organization.
Well, now, when you get into those shows, you have definite bias.
And by the way, I have watched CBSN, and I defy you to tell me with their anchors what political persuasion they are.
The guy Vlad, what's his name? He's definitely left, and even the woman that's next to him.
How do you know? How do you know?
Because it's the way they report the stories.
No, that's your interpretation, Phil.
Phil,
there's one I want to ask, because I'm getting sometimes conflicting reports from people. What about Dan Rather?
Oh, he's definitely left. He hated Bush so much.
Yeah.
He even reported fake news, and they got him fired.
How about
Coast Guard?
How about Walter Cronkite?
I think he's left.
The Multifair. Wow. Yeah, he was left. He was definitely lefty,
No. How do you know he was left?
He wasn't while he was reporting, but once he retired, I believe that he was more to the left.
No, he didn't do anything regarding politics when he retired. He actually did stuff about science and about the environment.
He was interviewed as far as his political leanings after he retired.
But while he was on, you couldn't tell what he was.
No, when he was on, you couldn't tell, and that's the way news should be reported. But when he retired, he said that he didn't want to inflict.
Okay, now do you know how
that's the whole point right there? That's the whole point.
Do you know how CNN was created?
Communist News Network. Yeah, it was a cable network. Was it Turner that created it?
Let me tell you about Turner. Turner was watching CBS one night, much to your saying what you're saying. He watched Dan Rather do the news, and at one point he saw Dan Rather smirk at a story he was doing. And Turner said, I want to start a network where I will have none of that. And he started CNN as a totally unbiased network. Now, he realized that any reporter, any anchor is going to have a political bias. We're human beings. We have an opinion. But he didn't want his people to in any way use phraseology or smirk at a story or do anything like that. The idea of CNN and the reason it was created in the first place was as a totally non-judgmental news organization.
It's not that way anymore.
Well, more so than the other two.
Yeah.
I think it's more neutral.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's not neutral. It isn't.
No, it's not.
I get all my news now from Glenn Beck. Yes, Jack.
Phil, if you wouldn't mind going back in time, listen to some of the newscasts or some of the news commentary shows from the 1940s, 1950s. Way
You mean like the newsreels?
No. I'm talking about there was a time in the industry where you had lots of commentary shows. H.B. Keldenborn.
Yeah, yeah.
But everything was so much more even-keeled, even with the commentary shows.
Wasn't. No, you want to believe that because we always want to think the good old days were good, and the good old days were usually just as bad as the current days.
So you're saying this is selective hearing?
Yeah. Now, I'm going to tell you about something that I did because I got tired of this bullshit and these conversations. Let me turn this thing on. I videotaped. Back when we had videotape, I videotaped the evening news. This was back in the late, early 90s. After hearing liberal friends of mine talk about how biased the news was for conservatives, and hearing conservatives say how biased the news was for liberals, so I videotaped an evening newscast. I got my conservative friends together one night, my liberal friends together another night, and asked them, okay, tell me what you think. And it always fell down on their political position as to which way it was biased. If it was the liberals, they said, oh, it's biased to the right. If it was the righties, oh, it's biased to the left. Invariably, it fell down that way.
And you don't think that by watching the news today, and I'm talking about cable news, that there is a bias between the different cable news networks?
We're not saying there isn't, but that whole war started when Fox decided to take a position. And then the others figured, well, we'll compete by taking another position. I mean, but you're talking about an entirely different landscape when you're talking about cable news. You're talking about news that is absolutely biased one way or another. But when you go to the news for instance, the New York Times is not biased except on its editorial page. And then it's biased. But that's where it allows itself to be biased. And the op-ed pieces, and they choose right-wing op-ed pieces. They have some great op-ed writers, right-wing writers at the New York Times.
Now, do you read the Washington Times?
Yes, I've read the Washington Times.
And what do you think about that?
I think it's far more biased than the New York Times.
Really? Just because they report things that you don't see in the New York Times?
No, because they are so right-skewed. What I'm saying is the Times tries to be even-handed. And it's not easy. It's not an easy task. Jeff, you've been quiet here. Anything you want to throw into here? Turn your mic on.
You're muted.
Mute. Sorry. My daughter used to produce for Fox TV in Boston, and she tried to produce facts. That's all. That was the way the approach was.
Well. That was local, but that was local. That was local news, and Fox had a different attitude about their local newscast. Yeah.
So it's not necessarily the organization, and I think when you look at the stuff that we see on the Fox stuff that's Fox Business and. I don't know what the hell business is.
I never could get. Can I say something here? As long as you brought it up, Jeff. Fox Business. What exactly is business about that channel? It's just guys. It's just guys and women sitting there talking about the politics of the day with a ticker running under them, and it's called Fox Business. When I go over to CNBC, I don't see them touting the MSNBC stuff. They're actually a business network.
They're talking money, yeah.
You go into the financial houses in this country, and you will not find a single one of them has Fox Business on their screens. They got MSNBC on all the time. Yes, Jeff.
Or Bloomberg.
So what I'm saying is that if you go to Fox or you go to CNBC or any of these others, they're strategizing to make money, to make profit. And they've taken a position. And maybe Phil doesn't like that position, Maybe Alex likes this position. Maybe Jack likes that position. Okay? Maybe Jeff likes this other one. And maybe I'm a more liberal person. I want to look at a little bit of each three. But you got to realize that these guys are trying to generate profit. And that's why they're focusing on each
I
one.
I watch Bloomberg a lot, business news. And it seems to be a pretty straightforward thing, even though Bloomberg seems to be a real left-winger. But, his network is pretty straight up.
Yes, Jack.
If you look at Fox's operations in other countries, they always come down in favor of the government position. That is the one consistency with Fox. They are the mouthpiece of the government that is in power.
How can you say that about when Obama was in power? Fox didn't seem to be very pro-Obama.
Well, the thing is, actually, they were in some ways. Usually they come down in favor of the right-wing government. Yeah. And there are those of us that believe and say that Obama damn sure was no liberal.
And listen, I never saw anything wrong with Ailes starting up Fox the way he started Fox, because his idea was the press was so left-wing that he wanted to have a right-wing voice in the mix, and I saw that as valuable. But it's you do that in a way in which you're not tainting the news to take that position. In other words, you don't suddenly mold the news to be right-wing, because the news is news. News is absolute, and you don't mold it to the way you want it to be. But when it comes to commentary and those late-night people like Hannity and so on, have at it. But when you're doing a newscast, do a newscast.
And Phil, I want to assure you, and I think Alex would say the same thing, we have never worked in a facility that was actually a left-wing facility, because all the guys that are signing the checks are like you.
There's WBAI, Pacifica Network. That's definitely a left-wing facility.
It's non-commercial. Doesn't count.
Doesn't count. But they're spreading an agenda that
it doesn't count. It's not a commercial organization. He's absolutely right. Most bosses that I've ever had at radio stations or television stations have been to the right.
Yeah. I'll tell you one that'll shock you. I worked for James Brown for almost 5 years. We bought 4 radio stations, and James Brown was so far in the Republican bag that he didn't get invited to the black club meetings.
Well, Papa got a brand new bag.
That's right.
Yeah.
And he was a Rolling Stone.
Yeah, but I mean...
do you remember the guy that was the first editor of the Washington Times? I think he came out of TV. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name properly, but it was like Andover he was the guy that set the agenda for the Washington Times, even though it was owned by
Sun Myung Moon.
Sun Myung Moon, right. He didn't dabble into the editorial part of it. And this guy, I guess he was a TV guy that Moon had hired, but he was supposed to be a really neutral kind of news guy, and they would just report stories that you wouldn't necessarily hear in other places. And I think that's these stories don't get reported on a number of stations, and even though they're not skewing the news, they're skewing it in how they're in what they report.
A right winger owns
what they choose to let you see.
Yeah, but a right winger owns the Washington Post.
Who, Bezos?
Yeah.
Is Bezos a right winger? I thought he was at war with Trump.
Well, he's at war with Trump, but he's a right winger.
Don't forget, Trump is not a Republican. He's just using the Republicans.
Well, he's doing a pretty damn good job.
Let me ask you,
he's a better Republican than all Republicans.
Okay, let me ask you this question, Phil. the last couple of days, Trump has told all kinds of stories about what went on at Trump Tower. Nothing happened. I didn't know about these meetings. My son didn't do anything wrong, blah, blah, blah. All of a sudden, he's admitting that something went on at Trump Tower. How do you feel about the fact he's been lying all along, and now finally maybe he's telling the truth?
Maybe he just got different information recently, and he's coming out with that information.
Phil,
how
come
do
on.
you know it's a lie? How do you know it's a lie? You know, maybe what's happened is he was just given new information that there was talk about Hillary and not the adoptions.
This guy is a guy who at this point in his life doesn't even know when he's lying.
You know, was he at the meeting?
Who?
So all he can report is secondhand what
It
he
now
was
is
told.
believed that he was, yes, in a meeting with the Russians, yes.
He was not in that meeting.
Well, maybe he wasn't in the room, but there is a thing called calling.
He wasn't sure what tower he was in.
Matter of fact, most of the people that were in that meeting walked out, and you know,
the question we should not ask, the question we should ask whether or not he was in the meeting. The question was,
how do you feel about the fact that his story keeps changing? That it has, over the last 2 years, it has changed over and over and over again.
I'll give you a whataboutism.
Or it changes.
No, this isn't whataboutism. This isn't whataboutism. I'm asking you.
In this campaign, you had Trump going after Hillary for dirt. In this campaign, you had Hillary going after Trump for dirt and even paying somebody to make it up.
But she wasn't going to a foreign. She wasn't going to a foreign country to get it. Yes, Jeff.
That's pretty good.
I think Phil should answer the question.
Give me the question again.
What was the question?
The meeting. Why was he coming out with different things? And I did answer that. I said he got different information, and he's always been transparent.
Wait a minute. In this kind of situation where he was present on some level, okay, whether he was in the room or not in the room, he's been changing his story over and over again.
Well, maybe the information he got has changed.
No, the information of what you saw and what you did doesn't change.
But he didn't see anything. He wasn't there.
But he now says he was.
No, he never said he was in that room with that Russian attorney. And,
he said he was aware of the meeting. He was involved in okaying the meeting to happen. I mean, come on. The guy is a lying sack of shit. He said there never were any meetings at Trump Towers. We never met with the Russians.
Donald Trump Jr. was in the meeting.
Answer 465. What are you saying there, Keith? Keith, what? Answer 465?
He's probably saying that's the 465 set answer that that you give as a Republican.
Yes, Jack.
That guy. Hey, Phil, I want to know, how do you feel about the fact that Trump said he doesn't play golf when Obama was playing golf? So I'll never play golf, yet he's playing golf all the damn time.
You call that playing golf? What Trump does?
Well, that is some validity to that. Yeah.
All right. So, hey, that's the way he conducts business, I guess. He gets people out there.
You mean, in other words, it's
critical of Obama doing the same thing.
It's a positive thing to be a lying sack of shit. That was what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Hey,
yes, Steve.
I'm going to cut out. I need a little break, and I'll call.
Well, wait a minute. The show's only got 3 minutes.
So
the show's only got 3 minutes left, Steve.
No.
Yeah, I have to get going, but I will call back.
Oh, boy,
so much.
Probably got to go to the bathroom. Give him a break.
Yes, I do.
Hey, I'm trying to do some show prep here. Anybody heard anything about the special elections?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, there's 5 of them going on right now.
Yeah,
no, I haven't.
That Ohio one was neck and neck, and they were looking for recount last I saw.
That's O'Connor and was the Democrat.
O'Connor and Blatterblose or whatever his name is.
Yeah, and Trump, I guess, went in and campaigned last week for that guy. So they always said it was neck and neck, that the Republican had a 1-point advantage.
There was a 4,000 vote difference, and they said that would cause a recount if it comes up to that.
And whose favor?
For who?
Well, the provisionals was left.
No, but who? But in favor of who?
4,000
Who was
votes.
leading? Yeah.
The Republican.
All right.
Okay.
That might be the 1%.
By the way,
Now-
folks, if look at this screen. This is what you're going to have to get used to when we will go to the new Skype.
This is pretty nice, actually.
Well, no, you know what?
Gotta get used to.
When it gets like
Look.
this, I always think it's like a Beatles album cover. They can all see it, Phil. You don't have to show it to them.
Well, this is what it looks like on my screen. I have a Mac.
Who is that handsome, good-looking, dark gentleman?
What's it going to be? Oh.
You mean the Negro?
The Negro.
No. You mean Jeff? I think he's got a good tan. He's been sailing.
Yeah.
Well, also, I was concerned about the, was it Kansas that was voting on right to work, or as we call it here in Texas, right to starve?
Yeah, I don't remember that one. I was just watching the Ohio one.
And that McCaskill. What's happening with her?
Claire McCaskill?
I don't remember that one either. I was
Isn't that
paying
one
more
that
attention to Ohio.
Republicans want to get rid of her?
Well, of course.
Yeah.
Because she's a Democrat.
Yeah, no, but that's one that they really like to get rid of.
Yeah.
Hey, just a quick aside. How does this sound tonight?
Sounds
on
pretty
my
terrible tonight. Sounds really horrible.
I haven't adjusted the bass and all of those things. But
no, it sounds. It's distorted. It's distorted. It's been distorted all night. Yeah.
Yeah.
Been and there's kind of a hissy sound in it too going on.
Oh, that could be the fan.
No, it's kind of it's not the fan. It's sort of a wussy sound.
Yeah, it's kind of.
You mean like a Republican wussy sound?
Yeah.
Quite frankly, Phil, I can't tell the difference between that board and this and what the board you had.
1754 vote difference.
What?
Really?
Yeah.
1754.
On the Balderson.
Yeah.
Are there any other campaigns that they're reporting?
I was just looking, but they're changing. Yeah, they're changing over now because of the hour.
Oh.
Yeah. So, we'll see what happens. I don't know. I don't think much is going to happen in this world, to tell you the truth. I don't think America is going to change much. I think we've just become a shitty country.
See, I think things have changed for the better.
No, as my wife said, I think it's become a shithole country, just like they were talking about a couple of weeks ago.
I went to Hayward the other day. That's a shithole country, you know.
Isn't it?
Yeah. It's just a bunch of
tomorrow we'll get to talk about. We haven't even saved the part about Trump, where it seems that every time he talks about black people, he calls them dumb.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, that Don Lemon. And what he said was that Don Lemon was dumb.
LeBron
James took offense to that.
He said LeBron James was dumb. Listen, LeBron James is anything but dumb. Hey, you better go, Jack, because I'm playing my theme here.
That's your theme.
Huh?
Yeah, but by the time he figures out how to turn off the Skype, you'll have plenty of time.
Let me say one thing. Fuck you, and fuck.
Okay, yeah, good. Thank you, Jack. That's Jack Bishop. We'll thank him for being here. We'll also thank a small panel tonight, but it was fine. We'll thank Phil, of course,
John.
And Jeff and Kevin for all being here tonight. Thank you so much.
Too.
What?
John and Steve.
John who?
Perulis.
Oh, him. He was here, so for just a short time, we don't give him a plug.
I think you're biased.
Of course I'm biased. Anyway, wave goodbye who's left there, will you? Give it a wave. Okay. All right. That's it. They're reluctant to wave. Well, that's all right. It doesn't hurt. Listen, that's it for tonight. We're here again tomorrow. In the meantime, Jack Bishop is next, the guy you just heard, with his own little program for the next 2 hours, or 1 hour rather, and then at 1 o'clock in the morning it's Connections, or Conniptions as I sometimes like to call it, with coming out of Florida, and that's at 1 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. Tomorrow night we start off the whole thing with the arena with the franchise MC at 8:30, at 9:30. It's Damian Chaplin and the Exchange. I'm Alex Bennett. I'll see you again tomorrow night. 10 o'clock, same time, same station in life. In the meantime, if you see her, Tell her I love her, okay? Bye.